Joining me now to discuss this and more, Sky News contributor Kosha Gada and past chair of the Parliament's Foreign Affairs and Defence Committee, Michael Danby.
Evening.
Well, Kosha, the point I made there about the splintering of the base, obviously lack of preparedness, but broadly, I think this is the fight for the US to be in. We're not talking about boots on the ground. We're talking about wiping out the Iranian nuclear arsenal. And who can be against that?
Yes, this is exposing a fault line, Peta, that is fundamental. I would say it actually has run long throughout U.S. history, right from the Founding Fathers, World War II, Vietnam, of course, everything that happened in the Middle East over the last 25 years, and now this. And in large part, Trump's rise has been about being a peacenik, non-interventionalist, focusing on domestic issues. However, life happens, and this has happened, and this is the reality right now. He's also a pragmatist. He's weighing up the calculation. I think that the base is firmly aligned on not wanting to get dragged into another forever war. That ship has definitely sailed, and the support is not there. When we start talking about taking out the nuclear arsenal, these so-called bunker-busting bombs, et cetera, there I think you do see a little bit more nuance. And there are people coming over to his side. That is a calculation he's making. Can he do something strategically, tactically, but very restrained and contained that will not spill out into the U.S. getting sucked into boots on the ground for 20 years, because that appetite is not there.
And I think let's pick up what Cruz had to say. He was walking through the Congress halls, and he makes that very distinction. Have a listen.
I agree with President Trump that Iran with a nuclear weapon is an unacceptable risk to America, and we need to stop it.
Not the right grab there. I wanted to show him walking through the Congress there, but he makes the point that this isn't boots on ground, Michael. This is something that we all need to, particularly us in the West, we all need to be on the same page here. And we can't go as far as we have gone now. I won't say we, I mean, Israel's done the heavy lifting to get to this point and squib it at the end and walk away, Michael, and leave Iran with the arsenal intact. I mean, we've got to go right through now and finish the job.
Trump described Carlson as a kook the other day in a tweet. He excluded Tulsi Gabbard from Camp David after she made another kooky broadcast saying that only the warmongers wanted to do something about Iran. No one is suggesting that there be any infantry or boots on the ground. That would be a bad idea. Most of them are even shying away from saying they're in favour of regime change. But the Israelis had the intelligence that at the last minute the Iranians were rushing towards a nuclear weapon. Can anyone doubt it, from Penny Wong to Tulsi Gabbard, after seeing a one-ton ballistic missile land deliberately on Beersheba's Soroka Hospital just a few hours ago? God help the world if these Iranian mullahs had an atom bomb to tip their ballistic missiles with.
Absolutely. Well, I've got to ask you what's going on inside Labor, because earlier in this week we saw a rare breakout of sanity from Defence Minister Richard Marles, who said Australia would play a key role in any potential US-China conflict in the Pacific region. Well, that's the bleeding obvious. We've got a thing called the ANZUS Treaty that would require that. But that prompted Paul Keating to come out, who has now accused Marles of, quote, a careless betrayal of Australian independence. Keating says that China has no intention of threatening us. Michael?
I love Paul Keating's rants. Gary Gray, the former National Secretary, described him as Captain Wacky. And you should see it just as theatre, Peter. It's so funny. I mean, his rants in the inner city about the architecture of Sydney and the landscapes, etc. You should watch them. But this is not serious. Richard Marles himself, if you ask me, is not serious. What we really need to do is increase our defence spending, not because the Americans demand us to, but because the Chinese Navy is circumnavigating Australia. And Paul Keating is a lovely theatrical person in his red slippers. He's a complete irrelevance. And you should just see him, as Gary Gray did, as Captain Wacky.
All right, talk to me, Kosha, about our Prime Minister doing the diplomatic equivalent of a stalking boyfriend, left at the altar in Canada by the US President. He's now going to come home to Australia for a couple of days, one day maybe, and then race across to NATO and hope that he probably catches the president in the toilet or in a corridor somewhere. I mean, I think it's unedifying. Clearly, his officers spooked about some sort of Oval Office showdown, right? That they don't want that sort of theatre. But given we're 7 months on from the Donald Trump re-election in November, our bloke has never met this bloke. Our bloke has said plenty of nasty stuff about him. Are you surprised Australia hasn't done enough to have this face-to-face meeting, you know, calm the ego of the president and get some of our issues dealt with promptly?
A little bit, and that was quite the metaphor, Peta. I think that imagery is sticking in people's minds, trying to chase him around the world and get that meeting when we've had 100 days over here. All sorts of people have gone in. Yes, you know, you don't know what you're walking into when you walk into the lion's den of the White House. We've seen that. But you got to grab the bull by its horns. It is a friendly relationship, a 100-year partnership. There are issues that Australia brings to the table that are of interest to Trump. You have a trade surplus, the position geographically in this part of the world, proximity to China, et cetera. There's plenty that can be used here, and it doesn't come across as being particularly strong if you're not being proactive about getting a meeting and trying to at least frame some sort of a trade deal on your terms, even if you don't hold all the cards.
I reckon we're about the only one left in the OECD, Michael.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to bring you in. I think we're about the only one left in the OECD or the G20 that has not had that face-to-face meeting.
And Peta, it's becoming really dangerous now. So imagine he goes to Brussels and he's dateless again. Then he has to go back to Washington and try and sit in the Zelensky chair. This is all being built up to an extent that's causing a crisis between the two countries that is absolutely unnecessary and could have been handled in a much better way. People have to blame Albo and Wong for jeopardising our relationship with a country where you may not like the president, but Keir Starmer has shown that the Labor government, even that sent staff to work against Trump's re-election, can repair the relationship, behave like adults, and generate the relationship between the two countries that a great country like Australia deserves.
I've got to leave it there. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you, Kosha.